to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. For the first time going out live on both video and radio. And I'm sorry if I get slightly distracted tonight, but I've got a slight echo on my headphones, but we will never mind that now. What we're going to do is, for the first half of the show, it's going to be a live interview. And then if you're listening on the radio, it'll be an hour of tunes. Quite a lot by my guest tonight. And let's get straight into it. I couldn't be more excited. So if you've joined us because of this man's song, which he's probably most famed for, you're missing a lot. So we're going to be talking tonight about him starring in the film Buddy's Song, along with the song, alongside Roger Daltrey. The song being used in 3 other Hollywood blockbusters. His blockbuster, his podcast, FHH, touring the world, joining in on Channel 4's The Games and ITV's Hit Me Baby One More Time, and his collaborations with Fountains of Wayne's Adam Schlesinger, Stay Away Baby Jane, and his triple generation musical family. And yes, I'm sure we'll have time to talk a little bit about that song. I didn't know I was the only one who loved A Man Not a Boy, but here we are. So please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Chesney Hawkes.
Hello, mate.
How are you doing tonight,
I've been welcomed to your bedroom. That was
This is the guest bedroom with my studio in it.
Well, it's all right. You're in my son's bedroom here. So I excuse the mess behind me. I've got West Ham scarves and all sorts of things in here. And a dog, by the look. I've even got a dog down here.
Hey. Oh, and we've got one just here behind me, which she's neatly hiding behind my chair.
Oh, I see. There you go. At least we've both got a dog to keep us company.
Yes. So anyone on radio, that's what you didn't see. It's 2 dogs behind us, West Ham scarves, and a lot of geekery behind me.
Yeah. And me too. I got Prince over here.
Hey, love it. So, sir, I mean, you're currently in LA, where you now live, but yes, you're soon going to be touring around the UK, before I forget. So I know you're going to be coming very near Southampton on a cruise ship. Oh,
that's true. Yeah. I've started doing... performing on cruise ships, which has been an interesting journey in more ways than one. But I'm doing lots of gigs this year. chesneyhawkes.com if anyone's interested in coming to see me. I've got all sorts going on this year, so very, very busy for me right now.
That's fantastic. And what is it like performing on a cruise ship? I mean, if nothing else, what happens if you hit a wave in the middle of a tune? This is something I've always wondered.
Well, these cruise ships are so big, and there's like 7,500 people on the one I was on last week. You don't feel a wave, It's like, yeah. If it gets rough, it can be funny sometimes because I sit on a stool because it's a very kind of an intimate kind of small supper club type of room that I play in. So I do sit on a stool, and sometimes it kind of does a bit of a sway, and you can definitely feel that. That's kind of a slightly off-putting at times, but. Yeah, you don't really feel on these big ships.
Oh, fair enough. It's just me and steerage on the little ships.
Right.
So Chesney, sir, obviously you started your kind of big break, which everyone knows you for, was kind of quite young in your career. However, you grew up in a musical family, as I've alluded to. So your mum was an actor and your dad was in the Tremolos.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. I grew up in.
You grew up around music from a very young age.
Yeah, it was a rock and roll upbringing. My dad's mates were all 60s superstars, and there were guitars propped up in every corner, and I grew up around the entertainment business very, very much so. Yeah.
And your name actually comes from a double act, so it's Chesney Allen you're named after.
That's right.
Allen,
yeah, you've done your research there, mate. Chesney Allen was in he had a big hit with his partner Bud Flanagan, which is another thing we have in common. There you go. So he had a hit with Underneath the Arches. Do you remember that song? Underneath the Arches. That was Chesney Allen and Bud Flanagan. So, yeah, it was my granddad's favourite, and I guess that's where the name came from.
So it wasn't someone who your dad toured with?
No, no, not at all. Chesney Allen was like a different generation even to my dad. You know, he was a generation up. You know, in fact, I wrote to him when I was a kid to find out, you know, where he got his name from, and he literally, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but he died the week after that, and I never got a reply. Perhaps he got the letter and he's like, another Chesney? Oh, can't cope.
One in, one out.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you have a lot of these kind of musicians coming to your house? Was that kind of, you know, was it a bit of a thing where you expected everyone to have this upbringing when you went to school, or?
Yeah, my dad's friends were, you know, people like Jerry Marsden from Jerry and the Pacemakers, and, you know, bands like The Searchers and The Marmalade and Herman's Hermits, all those kind of people. And in fact, when I was very young, we lived in a town called Sunningdale in Berkshire, and John Lennon lived across the road in this big old mansion called Titnes Park, which is, you know, an amazing heritage to have. You know, he was literally across the road.
Yeah, and speaking of John Lennon, his piano.
Yes, you're talking about John Lennon's piano, yeah. Yeah, so
I had a little bit of distortion there. I thought you said John Lennon.
I did say John Lennon, yeah. Are you...
Good.
Yes. So, yeah, in fact, yeah, that story is quite funny. My dad was working in the studio at Titnes Park, which is this place that John Lennon used to live. And Ringo had just bought the place. This is about 73, something like that. Ringo had bought the place from John Lennon, and John had moved to New York. And my dad was working in the studio, and he came to work one day, and there was this beautiful piano sitting out in the rain on the lawn. And he thought, that's a bit weird. And he asked the engineer, why is there a beautiful piano out in the rain? He said, oh yeah, that was John's, and Ringo doesn't want it. So, you know, basically my dad said, well, what's he going to do with it? He said, well, I don't know, I could ask him. So anyway, he asked him that night, and Dad came back to work the next day. There's the piano again. So he said, did you ask Ringo about that piano? He said, yeah, he doesn't want it. So, you know, if you've got a home for it. So Dad went off and found like a bunch of mates in a transit van, backed it up on the lawn, and put that piano in the back of the transit van and brought it home to us. And that was the piano I learned to play on. It's mad, isn't it?
I can't believe he didn't at least kind of contact someone else. Does anyone want this piano?
Anybody want John Lennon's piano? Exactly. It's madness.
I mean, I was just going to leave it out to rot, but if anyone wants it, I don't know if it's of interest to anyone.
I know, like, you know, everyone except for him, apparently. Yeah, it's mad. But that's been it was in my front room all through my childhood, and then when my parents moved out of that house, I inherited it. And then I moved to the States, so I gave it to Nick Kershaw. So it's sitting in Nick Kershaw's front room now.
And this is the white Imagine piano as well.
No, it's not that one. No, was bought by George Michael, would you believe? And so it's in the George Michael estate. That one. No, this was like a turn of the century wooden Broadway baby grand, but there was probably 10 pianos in that mansion. It was it's one of those.
I mean, still pretty amazing though.
Yeah, it's still John Lennon's piano, you know.
Yeah. That's not bad. That's not bad. And for yourself, so when did you start actually making music yourself?
Oh, very young, to be honest. I made a record when I was 9. With a brass band. So, because my dad had a studio in the back, I locked myself in there from a very, very early age and started creating music, even as young as kind of 12, I was making stuff. And, I couldn't help myself. Dad always says I came out singing.
And was the acting also love at the time, where you went on to be in the film, of course?
No, acting was never really my first love at all. Music was all about music, and the only real reason I took that, or that I even went for that part, was it was about a young singer-songwriter, and I thought maybe there could be an elusive record deal at the end of it. And I went into that film thinking, well, it might be my way into the music industry. So yeah, it was kind of weird, really. It was my first acting job, and really haven't done a heck of a lot like that since. Certainly not anything high-profile acting-wise.
And was it just like, yeah, oh, okay, I fancy getting a record deal out of this. I mean, I'll just do the acting; it'll be fine. Or was there a lot of nerves around that? I could
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
that's
It was like being
nerve-wracking.
thrown in the lion's den in a way, because a lot of the people involved in the film, especially the youngsters in the film, were all thespians already, even at the age we were at, 19, 20. In fact, younger. I was 17 when I got the part in Buddy's song. But I was acting with people like Lee Ross he was in Press Gang, and he's gone on to do great things. Obviously, a great actor. Nick Moran, Paul McKenzie, Julia Sawala. All these great young actors that had been through all of this, and I kind of just swooped in and wasn't even an actor and got the lead role. So. It was a bit of an odd situation, but of course there were some wonderful adults involved in the film, like Sharon Juice, who played my mum, was just wonderful to me, and Michael Elphick, famous for Boone and many other things. He was. They definitely took me under their wing, and Roger, of course.
Yeah, and what was it like to be face to face with Roger Daltrey? So, with your musical background, I take it you knew who he was and what he'd
Oh
done.
yeah,
And
massive Who fan, massive Who fan. I was, a big Townsend fan actually, and so Roger was fantastic. I mean, a real rock and roll legend, obviously, and Roger's quite tough. He says what he means, and he means what he says, and he definitely kind of. You don't have time to kind of be nervous around someone like Rog. He's just like, come on, let's get on with it, and that's kind of what it's like with him. It's like, oh, all right then, yeah, So yeah, he gave some great advice back then. One of the things he said to me early on is never stop playing live. And I definitely took that to heart, along with a lot of the other kind of people around me at that time. Like, all of my dad's mates all said that exact same thing, and my dad as well. And then I got to work, tour with people like Huey Lewis, who said the same thing, Bryan Adams, people like that, just amazing mentors in a way.
Yeah, I know Huey Lewis is particularly known as being one of the greatest work ethics in showbiz.
Yeah, definitely. Lovely man as well, and was very, very generous and giving to us youngsters. We were supporting him on a European arena tour. Yeah, that was an amazing time, that was.
Did you listen to his last album? Because he's got the Meniere's disease, is it? It's where he's kind of lost hearing.
Yeah.
And he managed to get an album out whilst dealing with that.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's almost like like with Mozart, he lost his hearing and he still managed to, compose all those incredible pieces of music. It's a similar thing. I mean, it must be awful. I feel for him. I really do.
Yeah, I would highly recommend, if anyone hasn't, check out that last album. It's really amazing. I believe it was called Weather.
Okay.
It's got this wonderful song called While We're Young, which is all about being old and just still doing it all anyway, which is just such a wonderful sentiment. You don't get middle-aged rock very often, or not often enough in my liking anyway.
No, that's true. No, I'll check it out. I actually haven't heard that, so thanks for the recommendation.
Oh yeah, no, it's a really great album. And there's one of the ones is just a classic doo-wop track.
Well, he was
when's the
always
last
good at
time you
that.
heard a new one of those?
Yeah. Well, it's where he came from. You see, that's his background. He loved all that stuff.
Yeah. And Roger is still a friend of yours to this day, I believe. You still go up to his farm.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Rog for a while. We've always stayed in contact, birthdays and stuff like that. And as you said, I've been to visit him in his lovely residence down in Sussex. So yeah, and took the kids trout farming.
That's really wonderful. And were your parents supportive of you going into the business after they both been in it themselves, or was it kind of like a bit wary of the, obviously anyone going into the arts doesn't necessarily have a consistent paycheck?
No, it was a bit of both, to be quite honest with you. Dad knew how difficult it is to even kind of get anywhere in the music industry. It's you get down to the kind of the less than 1%ers, and I obviously have seen that. I was very, very lucky as a young man to have had any kind of success. I know so many people that have incredibly talented over the years that for whatever reason slipped through the ropes, It always, I always think about that. Like, how many Paul McCartneys are there out there that never made it? You know what I mean? It's a tough business to make it in. And yeah, my dad was, he was tough about it. He made sure that that I was, absolutely gung ho, and there was no other path for me. He did give me a kind of a chat when I was about 16, and I'd left school, and he's like, "What are you going to do?" Knowing full well what I was going to say, and he said, "All right, well, listen, I'll give you to the end of the summer, and if you're not earning money in this music industry and playing music, then you're going to have to go back to school, son." And by the end of the summer, I was, I had like little piano gigs in local pubs and things like that, and I was doing all right, And he was like, all right, well, keep it up.
And the next year, you're like, well, here's the poster of the film I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the poster of the film, and
right.
here's my number one record. Yeah.
We will briefly touch upon the song. I don't want to go into it too much because Chesney will have talked about this everywhere. If you want to hear like the an hour on One Only, you can find it out there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you just a few questions quickly, if I might. So, when did you get the song first presented to you? Did Nick Kershaw come to you? Did you have a conversation? Was it just presented with the part and the film?
No, the very last minute, actually. All the film music was done. The film was done. Everything was done. The record was very happy with the album. And I remember the A&R man, Peter Robinson, just kind of saying, maybe we should put the feelers out there for see if there's any other songs that maybe singly type songs or whatever. And my dad actually found that song because, well, for a start, I was a massive Nick Kershaw fan as a teenager. I still am. He's amazing. Human Racing is still one of my favourite records of all time. I absolutely love it. But so my dad was having lunch with a friend of his. He worked for Warner Chappell, and he's like, "Oh, have a listen to this." And he put on what was obviously a Nick Kershaw song because Nick's vocals are obviously very unique, and you can definitely tell Nick's vocals. And he said, "Oh, well, is that a new Nick Kershaw album? Ches will be happy. He hasn't put a record out for a while." So he said, "Well, it is Nick Kershaw, but he's not really, interested in releasing these himself. So he's looking to kind of get into writing for other people, and these songs are free." So my dad brought the cassette back to me. Remember those? And
yeah, I had the single of your debut.
Yeah, I like that single. So,
yeah, well, that's what we call them at the time.
yeah, I love it. So I've still got that cassette of Nick songs, and I've got a little asterisk by the one and only, and a couple of other songs. There's a song called Oxygen, which ended up being recorded by Jason Donovan, and another one called I Love My TV, which ended up being recorded by Cliff Richard, of all things. And of course, I did the one and only. So. Yeah,
that's quite a diverse mix of artists.
It totally is. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, but funnily enough, when we brought that song to the team involved in the record, because it was a film and a record, there was a lot of different people involved, like a lot of chefs, if you know what I mean, and a lot of them really wanted to keep it in house. Because I'd written quite a few of the songs on the album for the film myself. But we had a kind of an in-house kind of team, and some of them didn't want to use any outside songs. So at first, the one and only was not even considered as something that we should record. And I remember going away from that session at Abbey Road a little bit dejected because I wasn't going to meet Nick Kershaw. That's why I was like, that's why I wanted to do it. And we took the weekend, and my A&R man in the end, I remember he called and he said to my dad, "All right, I tell you what, there might be something in this. Let's get the boys' vocal on it, and rest is history,
I just want to quickly give a shout out to some people watching and listening. So we've got Heartbeat City on YouTube. We've got Chrissy Woods on Facebook, and on SW20 we've got Amy, Lizzie, and Barry. And Chris listening there. So
hello everyone.
And I did say that I would give a quick shout out and hopefully get you to give a shout out to my friend Jem. She's been going through a really difficult time recently, and her husband Jack. And she said that the one and only, really helped deal with a really tough situation. So if you could just quickly give a shout out to Jem and Jack.
Yeah, hey Jem and Jack, how you doing? Lovely to have you here with us. And Jem, I hope things get better for you. I'm sorry you've been going through a tough time.
What is it like hearing that? You must have heard that so many times from people, how your music has inspired people, helped them through tough times. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
Well, I mean, that's everything, to be quite honest with you. You know, I realise that you know, that record means a lot to a lot of people, and I feel like I've kind of like given up ownership of that record in a way. It belongs to the people that have those emotional connections. I apologise for the noise outside. Obviously the gardeners are here. It's quite loud. Hopefully they'll go away in a minute.
I'm sorry if there's a bit of static on my end, but there's a wire which I'm worried to adjust. I could either get rid of the noise or increase it a lot, so I'm not touching it.
No, we'll get through this. We'll get through this.
We'll get through it.
Yes.
This is all the fun of the game.
So, you know, as you could imagine, I've had all sorts of incredible stories about the one and only over the years. You know, people have used it at their weddings, and, you know, people that met at a club when it was playing. Even funerals, you know, I get that quite a lot. It's like, you know, this person's favourite song ever, and then when he died, they played it at his funeral, and those kind of things, you know. So I'm really humbled by it, to be honest with you. You know, I've had my ups and downs with the song over the years, as you could probably imagine, but nowadays we're like friends with benefits, I'd say, you know.
Nice way of putting it. And one which I'm sure you'll be happy to look back on. What was it like being such a fan of music, being brought up around music so much, and then being on Top of the Pops?
Well, Top of the Pops was interesting because I, as you said, grew up watching Top of the Pops, and I was an absolute chart head. I used to, you know, make sure I was, you know, glued to the radio on the Sunday night, and when they play, you know, do the charts, and Top of the Pops was always like, you know, my favorite. So when I heard I was going to be on Top of the Pops, I was like, that's it, I've made it, you know. I mean, it was you know, one of those moments. But actually, the reality of it was a little bit disappointing. I just remember turning up the BBC. And of course, when you're on Top of the Pops, things are happening. You know, you've got stuff going on because, you know, if you're on Top of the Pops, you're being successful. You know, so I think I came from some other TV show or radio show, and we turned up at the BBC, and my band was there, and you know, I jumped on stage, and I remember watching it as a kid, thinking, "Oh, Top of the Pops would be like a massive party, and all these amazing artists, and big old crowd," and, you know, but actually in reality you look from the stage and it's like a bunch of BBC leckies and you know, the runners, and they've got all this little crowd that they've kind of, you know, put together in a little pod, and the mic and the cameras are all behind them, and they make it look like a big old party when it's not really. So, and then it was done, and then I thought, you know, as a kid I dreamt of doing Top of the Pops and thinking, you know, oh my God, but after that, I'm sure you go to the bar with Freddie Mercury and, you know, and have the most amazing time, you know. But it really wasn't. You know, we got whisked straight off to some other thing. I went up north or something, you know, or flew off to Germany or something like that. And it was like, it got in the car afterwards. I was like, oh, that was it then. That was Top of the Pops. But I see the footage of me doing Top of the Pops, you know, with my floppy hair and everything else, and it looks exactly as I remember it as a kid, you know, that kind of crazy fun party, you know. It's funny.
Yeah, I remember the comedian Richard Herring, who hosted Top of the Pops a couple of times with Stuart Lee, his comedy partner at the time. And he's just said that it's like you kind of get so excited about being there, and you get there and it's just a load of sweaty teenagers, mostly girls, and just the smell hits your nose, and that's all you could think about.
I don't remember the sweaty smell. I don't remember that.
Well, you're on the stage, it's probably protected from you.
Yeah.
I think when you're presenting it, you kind of get surrounded by them so much.
Oh, that's true. They were always kind of like gathered around, weren't they? The DJs were always kind of in the middle with a microphone, and so I can understand that. Yeah.
And is it true that your friends at the time had a term which was the Chesney Flexi card?
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess that was probably a phrase. Because I guess, you know, when you make it like that young, I was only 19, and suddenly there was like I was suddenly rich. It was like, so I was always picking up the bill in those days. Yeah, but I guess that wasn't the real kind of way that we used that card. It was more like getting into nightclubs, or you know what I mean, skipping the queues and things like that. One of those kind of like perks of fame. It was that's what they called the Chesney Flexi card.
That must have been so great just to be able to do that for your mates at that age as well.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, we don't do queues, boys. Come on.
Just a quick out shout. Yeah, Chrissy Wood has asked about your influences growing up. We've already covered that. Please do watch back to the beginning of this interview later, and you can hear all about the Chesney's influences. But like, as we all know, of course, the music industry is very fickle. Like you had a couple more chart hits at the time. Obviously, you've gone on to do so much since. But like, what was that experience like of going to #1 and then having the come down of that afterwards?
Yeah, that's well, for a start, when it all kicked off, it was amazing. It was like being in the eye of a storm in a way, where everything around you is just going, and there were times when it was like 7 countries in one day, and I'd wake up in the morning and not know where I was, and and the record company girl would come in and say, "Okay, come on, we're off to Germany today, and then we're going to Sweden," and it was just crazy. Your life becomes, well, not your own, as it were. So that part of it was interesting, but fun. I got to tour all around the world. Had lots of success all over the world. My brother was my drummer, so he kept my feet on the ground.
Yes.
Called me an idiot when it was needed, which was probably quite a lot.
Jody, am I correct?
Yeah, my brother Jody. Yeah, he's still my drummer now. 32 years later. I mean, we had bands even when we were very young. We played our first ever gig, and Jody was on the drums, and my sister was playing keyboards and singing Blondie songs, whatever, was in a brownie hut. I mean, I couldn't have been any more than 13, something like that. Yeah. So yeah. Then you asked about the kind of fallout of after. So yeah, that was tough. At the time, I felt like I was kind of. I used to use the phrase "water off a duck's back." I'm fine. Just don't worry. I'm not no problem at all. But in actuality, when I look back on it, it was actually a very, very tough time in my life, because over those couple of years, when we were touring the world and going everywhere, I'd built what I thought was kind of like a family almost. The record company girls that came around with me, and everybody around me with the management and everything. You build a little entourage that you see day in, day out, and you travel everywhere and you have these amazing experiences with. But then, of course, when you get dropped by a record label, all of that just goes like that. And I remember there was a time where I couldn't get some of those people on the phone and wouldn't answer my calls and things like that, and that was the hardest thing, kind of losing that, what I thought was my gang, my people. And I had to really kind of rethink my life in a way, and it was kind of like pick yourself up. I had to dust myself off and gave myself a huge dose of reality. I hadn't, in those 2 years or so, I hadn't been to the shops. I hadn't paid for anything myself. It's like, oh shit, I have to really get think about myself now. And like just silly things like, bank accounts and that, I know that sounds weird because everybody, that is listening will probably think, well, why wouldn't he have known how to go to a bank and stuff like that? Well, because I was so young and I made it so young, I just got picked up and shoved into the machine, if you see what I mean, and people did stuff for me. And so, my dose of reality was kind of like realizing that, real life is a little bit different. It was like being kicked out of, like being in a club, with champagne and you're in a booth with all these amazing people and then just being kicked out the back and you land on your ass in the on the curb and you have to kind of get yourself home. That's kind of how it felt.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like it's very easy for us as adults to like look at that experience. That would be difficult for anyone, but especially at that young age. I just think of 17-year-old Chesney going through all that. That's got to have been so brutal.
I was a washed up pop star at 22.
Yeah. And I know you went on to do the musicals. Was that a long time afterwards, or was that?
Yeah, it was actually. That was because straight after those days, I kind of refused to go out as Chesney Hawkes, and I absolutely refused to play the one and only for years, right? Probably until the turn of the century. And that's when other things started to come in, and I got offered a university tour, but I had to do it as me, and I was a bit nervous about doing that. And I thought people after all these years, like 10 years or whatever it had been, wouldn't have known who I was anymore and forgotten about it. But that wasn't the case, and amazingly. That song, just has, as I said, a song with wings. It just kind of was handed down like a mantle to all these people, and it went off and did its own thing. It had its own life, which was nothing to do with me. It had connections that I didn't have anything to do with, which was incredible. And I never looked back after those days. And then I started getting offers for things like, musicals, musical theatre, and so I treaded the board a little bit. Played Joseph. Played, I did something for Bill Kenwright, and the music of Barry Manilow. I played Jesus in Godspell.
Just with Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat, that seems like just perfect casting for you with your golden locks at the time and everything. It just seems good for you.
I have a history with Joseph in as much as when Jason came out of Joseph back in late 91. I was obviously flying at that point, and so Lloyd Webber actually asked me to take over. He asked me to go on after Jason. And I turned it down because I had this big music career, and I was obviously I couldn't have done it because I was touring and stuff like that. But yes, I was offered it then, and I turned him down. And I remember the money too. Whew, blimey, they offered me a lot of money at that point. Yeah, and I ended up playing Joseph years later. A couple of times actually, I played Joseph, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. I'm like made for that part. It was perfect.
And what's the experience like of doing stage work? Because you've done film by that stage. You've obviously done music extensively, but stage is another animal again. And doing the same show night after night is a particular muscle.
Yeah, it's a very, very different experience. And the first real musical I did, actually, well, there was a couple. One I did back in '95, McGregor's Trap. I did a musical at the Edinburgh Fringe. And it was a new musical, and that was my first foray into musical theatre. But the first kind of like really big thing that I did was Can't Smile Without You for Bill Kenwright, and it was based around the music of Barry Manilow, and Barry was involved, and it was a real challenge because I had to play the piano. Which I've always played piano, but this is playing Barry Manilow piano is different to playing accompanying yourself with he's an incredible musician, and every one of his songs in like 6 keys, so it was a challenge because there was the acting, there was the songs, the piano playing. It was a real kind of crazy vehicle for me, and it went really, really well. We toured all over the country with it, and I got great reviews and everything else. But yeah, the actual doing it every single night for 6 months or whatever, it does get a little monotonous, and I have to say, I feel like as much as I love Barry, and he was incredibly kind to me through that whole experience, I find it hard to listen to Barry Manilow now because of that.
Well, whenever I hear Barry Manilow, I've got a funny story. We're over in Las Vegas for a friend of mine's stag do in 2005, and he just started up a residency there. So they were playing it in the monorail, and to get anywhere in Vegas, you have to go through the monorail, as I'm sure you're familiar with, touring around. And on every monorail, they had this advert for, "Hey, I'm Barry Manilow. Come and see me at this showroom where I'm up for my new residency. I can't wait to make home here." And it would just play on loop over and again. By the time you'd finish there, the two things you could hear in your head was from people handing out cards for ladies, or that voiceover for Barry Manilow.
Well, he was no, I totally get it. He's a lovely man, and I was he was very generous with me. I remember I was on the opening night. He sent me a bottle of champagne, and he knew I was like worried about the key changes. You know, there's so many key changes, not vocally, fun enough, more musically, and his note just basically said, "Live the lyrics, and the key changes will look after themselves." And it was good advice. It's great advice, because one thing that he was always very, very vocal about was connecting emotionally to lyrics. And if you know what you're singing about and you're feeling it and you're connecting, then the audience will connect as well. You know, and he was absolutely 100% right about that.
And that applies to everything, really. Like, if you get the emotionality of yourself, how you're feeling in a moment, then the rest of the world will take care of itself. Like, I think we kind of too often look for what's external as opposed to within ourselves. So that's kind of quite profound on a few levels, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's something to carry in life with you, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're feeling, you're going to be okay. It's so true. It's so true, because some people don't. People cut off their feelings, you know. That's why it's always good to let things out, and, you know, to actually, you know, talk about, you know, uncomfortably talk about things. That's what's going to take you through those barriers. That will knock down those walls. But you have to be willing to go there, and it's not very British.
Yes. Well, a question which we got from the floor, which I'll slightly reword, because Chrissy Woods asked about how did you deal with your mental health when you dropped for the record label? It must have been hard. It must have hit you hard, pardon me. I'm still getting the in my head, so pardon me for stumbling on my words. But generally, it sounds like you're someone who has gone on a journey with mental health, and you have kind of come to terms with a lot of stuff from the past. Have you had professional therapy, or is that just something you've worked through yourself?
First of all, thank you, Chrissy, for that question. Yes, I have had professional therapy, but not till relatively recently, actually. And I think that you get to a certain age when you realize that some of the reasons that you get stuck in life are because of what you have been through as a younger person. And you have to kind of like take that shiny pebble out, or take that kind of moss-covered pebble out, and you have to get it out and talk about it, dust it off, polish it, get it out in the open, let people know about it, and just be honest with yourself, be honest with people around you, apologize if you need to, and you know, those are the things that have really helped me get through those things. You know, as I said before, I looked back on those days where I think at the time I was like, you know, water off a duck's back. I'm fine. You know, just whatever. Just pick yourself up. Keep going. It's going to be fine. But there were a lot of things in those days that definitely, you know, got through their thick skin. It's not an easy thing to go through. So it was not too much later on that I realized that, and you know, and I looked back on those days, and I'm like, I was kind to myself, you know what I mean? Kind to my inner child, or whatever, you know, where you want to look at it. And just, it's like just kind of telling yourself, you know, it's okay to feel something. You know, it's okay that you're angry. It's okay. And you can be angry. In fact, let it out. And the more you do that, and cry if you need to, you know, there is nothing more cleansing and cathartic than just letting emotion out. And you know, so that's how I've dealt with it over the years. I also have an incredible family, you know, that have been with me all the way through, and my wife is, you know, of 25 years, and I've got beautiful kids now, and so I have to hold it together for them. But I teach them, you know, those kind of tools. I've got many tools to kind of helping with mental health. I'm quite a positive person. So, and I think that's a very, very important, link in the chain is that positivity. It's so easy to dwell on negative things in your life, or look at them and talk about them a lot. It's too easy to dwell on those. So I think if you look for the positive things in your life, like I look at my daughter's smile, I look at my little pooch down here who needs a walk, and just simple things. And it sounds really twee, but nature. I love being in nature. Just listen to the sound of the birds. Just getting on with their life, and those you can't help but be in a good mood if you've got the sun on your face and listen to birds sing. It's so. I mean, I've gone down a rabbit hole here, haven't I? But
no, I love it. Honestly, I've gone through some sort of recently myself, which kind of very resonates with what you're saying. But it's really difficult, because if you're not open with yourself, it's very hard to be happy. But if you're kind of more happy, then you tend to be more open with yourself naturally. So it's getting that first step, which I think is the difficult part for a lot of people. I think processing stuff from the past is so important to that.
It's also very, very painful. So I understand, where a lot of people are in their life where it's hard to face those things. But when you do, oh my God, on the other side, it's a whole new world, because it's just festering in you. It's just there. When you get it out, and you really look at it and talk about it, even open up to people. I mean, that's another thing, Pete, just talking with people about deep things like in the past that have happened to you, that once you get it out, you can move on. You can move on from it. I mean, it's always going to be there. That pain will probably still be there, for the rest of your life, but it just gets easier. And that is something that makes it easier to deal with, and makes life easier to deal with.
And I think it applies for both, kind of like, even when you go through bad times, they're not as bad because you're not already carrying a weight with you.
Yeah.
And also, just to ham-fistedly segue to another question, when you're in good times, it makes them even better. And I've got to ask you, as a huge football fan, as I know you are, playing guitar, playing as in the place, not the guitar, playing guitar for the World Cup, what experience was that for you? That must have been so huge.
Yeah, as you said, I'm a massive football fan, and so when I was asked, my manager approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to play the halftime performance? Do you want to be the halftime performance at the England-Wales game in Qatar?" I was like, "Absolutely." I have never been to the World Cup, so I said yes before I've thought of anything else, because I was like, I've got to do it. It's football. It's an opportunity. I can't resist. So yeah, it was pretty amazing actually, and to play in front of 65,000 people that are singing that song back to me was just. I remember just kind of like being in the moment and just looking around, because I was on the side of the pitch. It wasn't even like a big stage or anything like that. I was literally standing on the side of the pitch with my guitar and a microphone, and I was just looking around at all these people singing the song, and it was just a phenomenal, like, goosebumps moment, absolute goosebumps moment, and enjoyed every minute of it, and got to meet the England team, and gave Declan Rice a cuddle, which was he's a bit of a hero of mine, being a West Ham boy, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And then because it went so well, I ended up coming back and doing the other games. So I stayed. I think I was in Qatar for like 2 weeks in the end.
Wow, and it must be so difficult to get a new experience which kind of like scares you in a way and thrills you in another way that after all these years.
Yeah, I was literally supposed to go there, do that one song, literally, and come back. And I ended up still there. I had to come back for a gig. I went from Qatar to that performance back to do a gig at Skegness Butlins, and then I came back to Qatar, and I was like the England's lucky charm. It was mad. I was more in demand than I was in '91. I was like front page, back pages of all the newspapers. I mean, it was crazy. And see, even your doggy agrees.
Yeah, she's a big football fan. It's not the door going at all. It's just about the football. Like, shush. Someone's going to answer the door. It's fine.
But there's
She's
someone at the door,
Shepherd.
Dad.
She's a German Shepherd, Collie Cross, so she wants to guard stuff, but she does it in the most insane way possible.
Yeah.
She just barks and then hugs the person when they come through the door. It's
Yeah,
not an effective guard dog, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but from the other side of the door, if you have nefarious ideas, then they're going to hear a deep bark that's going to put them off coming in until they come in, and then she'll lick him to death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very scary that way. Let's talk a little bit about your TV work. So you did the games on Channel 4. So it sounds like, you've said you're big into football. So did you have that physicality already? Was that kind of a big challenge, kind of going into those physical games?
Yeah, no, very much a challenge. I wasn't really a physical person. My brother used to play football, but I never really did. Anyway, so yeah, that was a challenge for me, and I threw myself in both feet. And those of you that don't know what the Games is, it was a show on Channel 4 a while back now, and it's a celebrity show where they got 10 celebrities to train in I think 10 different Olympic disciplines. So I had Fatima Whitbread teaching me how to throw a javelin. I had Tom Daly's trainer teaching me how to high dive from the 10-meter board. And I remember very well back then, because it was a long time ago now, and Kim, the trainer, he was training Tom Daly at that time, and Tom was like 7 at the time. So, and he was like, oh, this kid is amazing. Yeah, and now look at him. I know, absolutely incredible. But he told me back then, and I remembered his name and everything. So there was all sorts. So I was a sumo wrestler. I know that's one of my 2 truths and a lie thing when I say, I'm a trained sumo wrestler. And I actually am a trained sumo wrestler. And what else was there? We have water ski jumping. Yeah, that was interesting. I wouldn't recommend it. Spoils a good ski.
I mean, I think skiing spoils a good ski for me, but that's just me. I mean, sumo though, I'm just trying to picture you doing sumo wrestling. You're not the biggest of people, bulky ones.
No, exactly. I'm a skinny little runt, let's be honest. And I had to wear the what they call the mawashi, which is basically the big old nappy, And I actually fought Craig Charles. I beat him. I beat Craig Charles.
Just himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, you see, I'd be most worried that I'd done up the sorry, I'm forgetting the name already.
Mawashi.
Nappy wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be worried my kawashi would collapse.
I still got my mawashi somewhere.
Mawashi.
But that was an amazing experience, actually. It really was. It made me realize just what we can achieve if you put your mind to it. It was like 3 months of training in all these disciplines. And I remember when we first climbed up to the 10-meter board, none of us, of all the 10 celebrities, we couldn't even think about even jumping off, let alone diving off. We crawled to the end and looked over like a Chad or something and it's like, no bloody way, that's never happening. But by the end of 3 months, I was doing like an inward tuck off of the 10-meter board. It's mental.
Wow. And the week after, I take it just nothing, just on the sofa, TV, pizza.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I did actually get injured doing that show. It was a water ski jumping accident, which is pretty obvious, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a stupid thing to do, isn't it?
Getting onto one of the other reality shows that we mentioned up front, Hit Me Baby One More Time, which was on ITV. So you performed one of your songs, and then you perform a song by another artist, and you did Robbie Williams, I believe.
Did I? Yes, I did. I did She's the One. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying I believe. I've actually got it ready to play later on in the show. So I don't know why I'm saying it in that way, but it was She's the One.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it, because I would have forgotten what it was, actually. Yeah. No, I'm a huge World Party fan. I don't know if you know World Party. And that song, it was actually originally written by Carl Wallinger. And so World Party did that originally, and that was where I know the song from. And of course, Robbie had a big hit with it, so I jumped at the chance of doing that song. Yeah, and it actually went pretty well. It was good fun, and hanging out backstage with people like Tiffany and Shakin' Stevens and and all these great artists that I'm still friends with these days.
Yeah, it was a huge lineup which they had in there. They had the Honeys as well, amongst just so many
Yeah.
others. And you actually won your series, I believe.
Yeah, I think I came second in the whole thing, just after Shaky. So yeah, it was good. It was a good run, good fun. It was a Saturday evening entertainment show. It was just a bit of fun. I do remember going on to Philip and Holly this morning, and it was who else was on? I think Shaky was there, and Carol Decker was there, and she did this hilarious thing where I told her backstage that my wife was pregnant in confidence, and when we got on live on TV. And she just I think Philip asked me a question, and Carol said, "Oh, you should say congratulations to Chesney, his wife's pregnant." And I was like, "Shit, I haven't even told my parents." And afterwards, I told her. She was horrified, and then she sent my wife a beautiful bouquet of flowers, saying sorry.
That's a way to tell everyone at once, at least.
Yeah, and now that baby is 17. So. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah, and just to bring it all round, so your dad was in the Treblers, which you're now you've toured with and you played for them as well as your brother on the drums, and your son is now into music as well. Like it's a musical legacy now at this stage.
Yeah, we're like a dynasty, man. Indy is 17. He's studying at the Brit School in London, and he's an incredible guitar player. He really is. I mean, There's no other way of putting it. He comes on the road with me when he deems me worthy. Just watch this space, Indiana Hawks. He's something else. All of my kids are amazing, But at Indy went for the music. My oldest is 21. He's an actor over here, darling. And my daughter is studying animal behaviour at St Andrews University. So they're all doing really, really well, and I'm proud of all of them equally.
And by the way, we will play later. There's a thing on YouTube of you and your son and Indy playing "When My Guitar My Guitar Gently Weeps." Damn this feedback! While My Guitar Gently Weeps, absolutely fantastic. We'll play it later on the show.
He was only 14 doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you got him to play for the Troubadours yet? Just because then you've got three generations in one band.
Yeah, I did. He actually joined us on tour, and there was one gig where my dad was well enough to make it on stage. We were in Wimbledon, and so we had literally three generations on stage. And I've got a picture of us singing "Silence Is Golden" in a line. And there was me, my brother, my dad, and my son Indy. And that was, proper box ticked. That was, incredible moment.
That must have been so emotional doing that.
It was I could hardly sing it. It was, I couldn't look over. I'd look over at my dad. I mean, that's hard enough. I look over at my son, my brother. I mean, it was, lump in the throat time.
Absolutely amazing. So let's get out some plugs there. You've got the podcast, FHH. Do you want to give a shout out to that quickly?
Yes, Ferguson Harrington Hawks. FHH podcast.com. We're actually coming to a close on that. We've done 5 seasons now. Well, three seasons with that name, but it's the same people that we did 2 other seasons before. So we've done like 50 odd shows. It was just the right time to hang up the boots there. And so fun enough, we did our final show today, which will be going out next week. It was kind of a bittersweet day. I literally did that just before I came onto your show here.
Oh, well, you got to check out. You had Tommy Cannon on just the episode, which is most current at the moment.
That was released today. What a legend. What an absolute legend. He was fantastic. Yeah. And for those who don't know the podcast, basically we ask our guest for a quote that they live their life by. And my co-host does a little bit of a kind of magic, not like pull a rabbit out of a hat, but like she gets them to kind of a storytelling thing with the guest. And then I recreate their favorite song here live. And that's what we did for Tommy Cannon. I can't remember his song actually. What was the song he did? Oh God, I can't remember. You're gonna have to.
You guys will have to listen to find out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go in and have a listen. Yeah, exactly.
There's your tease right there.
Yeah.
And I will just give a shout out. You've got a book out now as well. The complete picture, all your albums from 91 to 2012.
That's
correct. 5 CDs and 1 DVD.
Yeah, and I have a new album coming out this year, later on this year, called Living Arrows, which I'm very, very proud of. So, and lots of touring. Anyone's interested in anything of mine, chesneyhawkes.com. That is Galactic Central Point for me.
Well, I'm going to let you go in just a second because I know you're home to get out a little bit early for some time with your family there.
Yeah,
could you please give me a quick bumper for the radio show? I'm sorry, I was going to do this before, but my whole setup exploded just before I connected with Chesney. So if you can just very quickly say, this is Chesney Hawkes, and you're listening to the Dr. Squee Show on SW20 Radio.
SW20 Radio, okay.
Please.
Hi, this is Chesney Hawkes. You are listening to the Dr. Squee Show on SW... what was it?
SW20 Radio.
SW20. Hi, this is Chesney Hawkes here. You're listening to the Dr. Squee Show on... let me do it again. Hi, this is Chesney Hawkes here. You're listening to the Dr. Squee Show on SW20 Radio.
Thank you so much. That's just made my radio bosses very happy. Have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you very much for doing this, and hopefully we'll speak again another time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It was really, really great. And, hi to all your listeners.
Thank you very much, Chesney. You take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Sorry, I've accidentally cut Chesney Hawkes off there, but I know he did want to get off to something just now. We thank very much, Chesney. I'm about to stop the stream on video and go over to the audio version of this show on SW20 Radio, which is broadcasting simultaneously as we speak. So if you want to hear some great tunes, some by Chesney, some by The Who, some by the Tremolos, you can join us over there right now. But if you're on the video, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully we'll join you over on the radio in just a second. But thank you very much for watching, and be kind until next time. And if you are listening on the radio, the video is probably getting the end of this